Welcome to Rebel Watch, an all-Star Wars podcast.
Hey, what are you trying to push on us?
Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly.
Oh, I was wanting to get the rant was just...
Oh, you just want me to keep going to the rant? Okay.
I mean, how powerful is he?
How powerful is the Emperor? That's the question. How strong is he? How did he know? Now we have Battlefront 2 information. Contingency plan. Does it all add up?
I don't know, but we can figure it out here on Rebel Watch. Welcome to episode 37, and Matt and I are ready to talk a little. I guess we're talking about the Emperor because Matt's fired up about it and he's ready to go.
It's time. For some reason, people don't talk about.
Well, what's
it
crazy is he's dead, and we're still talking about it. Is he? Is he dead? Old Palpy. Also, is he one of the more OP guys in Battlefront 2? What do you think, hero-wise? See, I don't get to play with a lot of heroes because I'm kind of a slouch.
And you haven't bought them with your hard-earned money?
No, because I have to earn them. Yeah, so.
You know, I will say, I did read on IGN today that, I don't know, they were interviewing the guy who plays Snoke.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. And he said he's the most powerful anyone had ever seen.
Oh, yeah, I know. He just says that. He's just stirring the pot.
Is he more powerful than
No.
Palpatine?
I did read that, too.
Does he have more metachlorians?
Who knows? Does that even matter?
It should.
I don't know. I mean, like Anakin had so many. I almost think he had too many. You know what I mean?
So we don't get metachlorians. They're not.
I mean, how did Anakin's midichlorians help him when Obi-Wan sliced his legs off in his arm?
Maybe he lost some metachlorians there. I don't know.
Maybe as he got older, they died off. So, anyways, yeah, I guess we're talking about Palpatine today, and Matt's got a few questions. Literally, this is just an impromptu.
Yep.
Decided to.
Yeah. First question is.
All right, first question.
Did Palpatine know that his end was coming as you get towards the Return of the Jedi?
Absolutely. 100%. He knew it. He knew that.
So did he have the contingency plan put in place because he knew he was going to die, or did he do it in case he died?
Both. The contingency, it was more of a matter of when. He foresaw, I think, many different ways that he was going, his downfall and how he was going to, what might, I guess, cause his downfall or cause him to die. I think when he meets with Gallius Rex way back on Jakku and sort of recruits him, this is in Aftermath, was it after? Yeah, Aftermath, I think it was. And kind of recruits him. The whole chess match thing goes on. He's been setting this up for a long time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just multiple outcomes. So did he know exactly that Vader would turn right then and there? No. So that, I guess, but did he know he was like that? I think as he got closer and closer, he knew that his time was approaching. I think, though, there was still, the future is always emotion, right? I think he knew, if he could turn Luke, then he was good, and everything was like he would still be in power, right? Luke, he would turn Luke, and they would learn more about the mysteries of the Force and things like that, but he didn't. All right, Luke could not be turned. He's a Jedi, like his father before him.
Well, his father got turned.
They did. I know that's what he says in return. So yeah, I mean, I think he did know, and he tried. I think what happened is maybe he got confused along the way. I think he tried in so many ways to avoid his fate or his death.
Do we know anything? So you know a lot more about this than I do. Extended universe. So what we now is called Legends.
What we know about Palpy?
And his plan, because we knew he had other apprentices like Mara Jade, things like that. So in that spectrum, the old spectrum, did we know anything about his plans for the future?
He didn't really. I don't remember that I don't recall that he had like a contingency plan. Well, I could take that back. He did. He had clones, so he was cloning, and that was a thing. So he had a clone of himself.
Could Snoke be a clone of Palpatine?
That's what a lot of people have brought that up. They've said that was one of the early on theories, is that Snoke was somehow a clone or a creature or something that maybe that Palpatine had created.
What if Rey is a
Yeah, no, Rey could be as well. That's been another big thing, especially with her lightsaber form and the way that she fights, hearing what seems like the Emperor in her ear during the Force vision. All of those things. It sounds like that's definitely a possibility. In Legends, yeah, you had Mara Jade and you had some other folks that were sort of like his. Like, he didn't put everything in, like, according to the books, anyways. There were other people always vying to, like, usurp Vader, I guess, get that number 2 spot. And that keeps Vader sharp, and that's sort of the Sith way. And they kind of like that, fighting for the top sort of thing. So, yeah. But no, there wasn't any, like, formal, I don't think, contingency plan. As far as I know. I mean, there might have been something in the comics. See, I didn't read a lot of the comic books. But, yeah, from what I remember from, like, the Thrawn trilogy and things right thereafter, that's basically, and his spirit too sometimes, which is interesting. Like Mara Jade will fly past, in Legends she would fly past, the Forest Moon of Endor, that area where the second Death Star had been destroyed, and she would hear Palpatine calling out to her, which was interesting. So, are there dark side Force ghosts and spirits that live on? Yes, there are, and that's a lot of that's in Legends. You see that in the Old Republic too. Is that what we're dealing with in Snoke? I don't know. Is he? Because some people have mentioned that there's actually I don't know his name, and I wasn't prepped for this. Gosh dang it! But there's old Sith lords that have died, and their spirits have possessed either objects,
right,
or holocron, or even other Jedi or Sith. So could that be in play here with Snoke? It's just kind of a thought. So.
Here's another question for you. I've got like 5 or 6 big open-ended questions here.
Yeah.
Did Palpatine know about Luke and Leia?
Did Palpatine know about Luke and Leia? No.
At all? You're saying no?
Yes. I think he did. I think... I don't know that he knew that she was pregnant, though. I think they kept that pretty secret. Even if they did, though, I think they faked it well enough on her funeral in Naboo, and that it seemed like she had died with those children. Does that make sense?
Right.
So, because I think, even when, like, if Palpatine is informed on that, I think he thinks they're dead, but maybe he is always sort of searching, but. I do believe that Obi-Wan and Yoda and Bail Organa kept Luke and Leia well hidden, right? So they definitely were well hidden. It wasn't until, I'm trying to remember if it was, I always say his name wrong, Prince Shizor.
Yeah, I know
name is.
you're talking about,
the Falleen. Whether he had something to do with like the murder of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and things, and so I'm trying to remember exactly when Palpatine sort of figures out that there are descendants of Anakin Skywalker, but it's in the original trilogy there, or that they're alive. That the fact that he was going to have children with Padme, he may have known that, but I think it's if he knew they were alive, he would have been searching and hunting them down. They were still obsessed with exterminating the Jedi Order and seeing Order 66, to completion. That's where we are. And even in the Darth Vader comic books that they're bringing out now, that's basically what this has been, is seeking out some of these other Jedi and destroying them. And then Darth Vader sort of, his whole path to becoming a true Sith Lord, because Palpatine knew he had a long ways to go there. But, yeah, I don't think Palpatine... knew, or if he did, I'll say this: if he did know, then he didn't consider them a very big threat, and he should have.
But if
now, once he finds out, he does consider them a threat, and believes that Luke needs to be destroyed or turned. He will join us or die. Vader says that. Yeah. So, I guess I don't know, right? I mean,
yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell because we always see Yoda. And we always think, Yoda's this all-powerful being and stuff. And I think Palpatine's probably equal. I think he and Yoda are equals. I think the more I always joke, say, well, Palpatine beat Yoda, and we go back and forth.
Yeah.
It probably is closer to a draw, having seen it. having come around on it a little bit more over the years.
But ultimately, Yoda fails.
But you're right. But Yoda. But if you think about Yoda, he's always searching the Force. We never get that side of Palpatine, him searching through the Force,
which is so cool.
And it's not like the Sith aren't students of the Force.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They are, and they're teachers.
They're just as future students of the Force.
Yeah, you forgot. I think Clone Wars does a good job of showing you how they do teach, and then things that they do to kind of help bring out a different side or more powers and abilities inside of their pupils. And later on in Aftermath, in the Aftermath series, you get to hear some of that discussion and talk about how Palpatine sensed something maybe in the unknown region, or he was obsessed with searching for something beyond this galaxy that's far, far away. And so, that's what I think is kind of neat, in that, he's always searching. He hears that he's in awe of this power. I'm not sure that he fears it, but he feels something calling to him. So it's like he's obviously meditating in the Force and thinking about it on a deeper level than what we see in the films or what we're used to. So you kind of have to dive into the books and the comics to get a little bit more of that. But yeah, absolutely. And what's super neat is to see in the comic books, what they're doing right now, I just mentioned it, is that, like you said, Palpatine is teaching. He is teaching and guiding Darth Vader.
Maul.
Yeah. Well, that was in the Clone Wars series. Later on, you got to see sort of how Palpatine deals with his apprentice, Count Dooku, and how Count Dooku was dealing with his apprentice, and so on. So all of that you got to see a lot on the other side of the coin, I guess, with the Sith Lords and how they trained and how they instructed their pupils and what have you. So, yeah. Okay. These are good questions.
Why did he keep the Senate going for 18 years? So here, this person says, if it took Palpatine roughly 3 years to turn the Republic into a dictatorship, it seems like it took him. Why did it take him so long to just completely dissolve the Senate?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I think it comes down to, as long as he could control that Senate, and he was the leader of the Senate essentially, right?
Right.
And so that's the body in which he is leading or ruling over. The more he has them intact and I think in front of him, the more that dark side power is able to influence those people. So I think, because I had thought about that, because eventually he gives it to the regional governors, and basically what I call grand moffs or just moffs around into various systems. But he needed, I think, to keep the Senate intact and in a sense to sort of keep some semblance of control and like it basically was an extension of his powers and his reach. He could through those senators and those leaders there, he could sort of seep into those systems and get more influence and control. So, and they're unaware that he's a Sith Lord. So I think as long as it was working in his favor, then that was a good thing. But then, early on, there was always this small, but there's so many systems. There's so many planets. Right. It's a galaxy we're talking about. And, so you're going to he needs to know what's going on in those different places. And that's sort of his information gathering. He can tap their offices, whatever it may be. You have all those people coming to one spot, all this information in the galaxy coming back there. But eventually they did disband it and they went to, the governors and things because the Senate. Now, I wonder how that went over with the general public and in his empire.
Well,
you know what I mean?
When you read Bloodlines, the Leia book,
yeah,
and you get a lot more in that book of like the daily interactions between like the people in like the Senate and stuff like that, and it just seems like it's a madhouse. Yeah,
it seems like it's a mess. You get the populist and you got the centrist and two warring factions there and stuff. But people.
So even before, if you're talking about the Trade Federation and just the Galactic Republic,
the Banking Clan, and all the different things that are going on. But how about this? We hear Iden Versio, right? We've been talking about her, and we've been talking about how, she grew up in the Empire, and she feels like she's protecting the citizens of this empire. And when you see it through her eyes, she's like a hero. She's on the good side. That's the other thing they are the good guys. The Empire's the good guys. And once upon a time, they were the good guys in our minds. In the overall grand scheme of things, they were the commanders of the clone troopers. You know what I mean? Who were good guys. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, my point that I'm trying to make though is those citizens, when they vote for their senators, right? So there's still a semblance of democracy. The people still feel like they're kind of in control, voting for the senators and stuff. And maybe they liked that. So I do kind of wonder how, after around episode 4, right, or right before, how did the galaxy take that when that switch happened? With the Senate. You know what I'm saying? I don't really know, and that would be interesting.
Do you think his
know.
plan was maybe his plan was he needed to take it so long because he needed the Jedi gone, and so
or his focus was shifted elsewhere too. Yeah, it could have just been that. I mean, because for years, over the course of 4, 5, and 6, he's late. That's a lot. Those are more condensed than that big gap that we had there, right? Yeah. So you have to imagine that during the gap between 3 and 4. When Rebels is taking place now, so we got the new animated series Rebels, which is awesome, that Palpatine is working on those observatories.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's collecting the compass that Luke got. He's collecting these.
Still so crazy that there's like that it's so baffling to me that how important the Battlefront campaign is.
Story, I know, and it will be things that we talk about.
Because I mean, it's not
like
like The Force Unleashed. George Lucas just came out and said this is canon, and there was a lot of stuff in there that was like, okay, this is like big stuff,
right?
But it was never anything that was like it actually drastically impacts the story.
I know,
like this directly impacts like Star Wars.
Yes,
like,
it does.
Directly impacts it.
And it is really telling a good quality, cohesive story underneath. See, the thing before with Legends is, yes, it would tell us stories. You would have like the X-Wing Rogue Squadron. Some of these things started to feel a little bit they started off in their own place, and then later on in the series, they connect them.
Yeah.
Because you'll start to find all those references and Easter eggs and stuff.
In our review, I said the thing that I really liked about this campaign was that it felt like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like Episode 7, to me, I don't know what it is. Sometimes when I watch them, like it feels like Star Wars, but it feels like it just doesn't feel natural.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah.
Whereas like this campaign, I was like, feels.
Yeah, and what really helps
like
the campaign is that you've got the original characters, plus you've got that,
and with the exception of Luke, great voice acting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you've got the Rebels though, and you've also got the Rebels switching into the New Republic,
right?
I guess, and then you've got the Empire. So you still have the Empire there. So yeah, it definitely still feels like that. But yeah, Pilio, the observatory, huge deal. Huge. I mean, the fact that we got another one that Jakku was an observatory and now Pilio was as well is huge. And the Emperor has obviously collected a lot of these things. I imagine this is something here. If you've listened to Rebel Watch before, you've heard Ez say this. Okay, I believe that that Luke went searching for things, right? And I've often said that I think Luke sort of left Ben Solo to fend for himself, or Rey, or whoever, the temple. I think he got carried away in his search, and maybe we see the early startings of that right after Episode 6. We see that in the story campaign where he's going to these observatories. Do we not? I mean, we see him getting a compass just a short, like a year or two, a year and a half after Return of the Jedi. So he's getting this compass. He meets Del Meeko, and he's on a journey of some sorts. Like, he's not leading the charge anymore and fighting down the shadow of the Empire or the remnants of the Empire. He is actually on his own journey out there, digging into what Palpatine had either stolen or taken or manipulated or what have you. So it's weird for me, I guess, and now I look and I see how Palpatine was doing that same thing, and he had been doing it between Episode 3 and 4. So he's on that sort of similar journey. So it's almost like Luke is going through, sifting through Palpatine's stuff, trying to put things back together. You know what I mean? Balance the Force in a sense. You know what I mean? I cannot say enough what a big deal it is that Pilio is a thing, and it's just that they mentioned Gallius Rax, they mentioned Admiral Sloane being one of the commanders in Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 references, you got Aftermath references in there, you've got references to later on in The Force Awakens, and it just has so much. It's just so cohesive underneath there that it just feels good, and I don't know. And it's connecting us with the book that happens in Episode 4, right after the destruction of the first Death Star, when we first get introduced to Iden Versio and her team, Del Meeko, Sin, and Gideon Hask. Like, what a big deal! Like that, you're connecting now, clear back to episode 4. Now we're in post 6, and we're getting more of the contingency story, or Cinder, I guess, from Palpatine, which was told. That story, that contingency plan, was kind of laid out in Aftermath in that series, and then Battlefront is giving a name and a face to it. It's unbelievable.
It is.
You know,
it's nuts.
So, yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
What else you got?
I got more questions. We have like 20 more minutes here, so we got plenty of time.
Cool. Yeah, we have plenty of time. Yeah.
Did General Grievous know Palpatine was Sidious?
That's a good question.
The final part of Palpatine's plan to
I
rise to power was to utilize General Grievous as another distraction to the Jedi. General Grievous captures Palpatine in an effort to lure Anakin to kill Dooku. After he escapes, he talks with Lord Sidious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he did. I don't know that he did. I believe General Grievous was just so dependent upon Lord Tyrannus or Lord or Count Dooku. Like, he just knew he had very specific orders, etc., yada yada. Plus, Palpatine was in no danger whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, he's in no danger whatsoever. So it's easy for him to play that puppet role, I think. And he needed Grievous, like that says, to kind of, again, distract the Jedi, to keep them. They're all chasing down this guy, General Grievous, which, again, was one of those things in episode 3 where we're like, where did this guy come from?
Right.
You know, but
remember,
had years
Grievous
of war.
had a chance. Grievous could have killed Palpatine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, could have killed. I mean, could it? I mean, yeah.
How powerful is Grievous, really?
He's a joke. I don't
really
know.
think it's a joke?
I don't think he's that. He was trained in the Jedi arts by Count Dooku, right? I mean, that's what he says to Obi-Wan.
He's a droid. Grievous is always just.
I mean, he's killed some Jedi. Obviously,
yeah.
He's killed some Jedi, and in Clone Wars, you get more of him, and he is a lot closer with Count Dooku, and Count Dooku.
So he's like a
sees him as
cyborg, or he's like
a second. Yeah, he's alien, but he's got an exterior that is robotic. Yeah. So I mean, but no, I mean, I don't think Grievous knew Palpatine was Darth Sidious, though. Do you? I mean, unless I could be totally wrong. Did they say so?
I don't think so.
Was there evidence that?
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I don't think there was a reason for him to.
Because Grievous isn't a Sith.
Because here's the thing,
right? Grievous is
no. Here's the thing: for that cat to get out of the bag would be the end. If Palpatine would have let, I mean, here's how tight that secret was kept, to the point where people in when he's, those years between 3 and 4, where Palpatine is Emperor Palpatine, he's their emperor. He's not a Sith Lord. They have no idea what that is. And I love that, again, I'm going back to the story mission in Battlefront 2, but, Luke tells Del Meeko that he was taught to fear the wrong thing. You were fearing the wrong thing. You were taught to fear this Jedi.
Right.
You didn't even know. There's something else called the Sith.
Yeah.
And I don't think Palpatine wanted anyone to know what a Sith was. So, like, for years, they have no idea. Only the closest of his close knew that he had powers. They didn't really quite know what it was. That was a secret he had to keep super close to his chest. So, Vader knows it. Count Dooku knew it. Darth Maul. But very few others knew, or connected the two. The public figure versus the private Sith Lord.
Which kind of leads me to another question. How exactly do you think he hid that he was a Sith Lord? When you have, when we see it where Yoda and Mace Windu are like, well, we're blind, but I mean, Qui-Gon kind of figured it out. Hey, guys, Sith are back.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah.
Is it just the Jedi arrogance?
Yes. The Force, I believe it goes back to a discussion that Obi-Wan had with Luke on the Millennium Falcon, and Luke is asking, do I control it or does it control me? And I think people have missed, and I just believe so much in what happened in Episode 4, and I think I'm so interested. I would love to talk to Story Group one day. That'd be like my dream come true, would be to talk to Story Group. But to ask them, the way that Obi-Wan responds to Luke and talking about whether do I control it or does it control me, that's what we get into at The Force Awakens. The Force awoke in Rey. It chose her, and it's speaking and calling out to her. So, anyways, how was he able to do it? I believe the Jedi they had basically confined the Force. The Force will do these things for us, and it will help us form this perfect, society and utopia, whatever. If that's what they were going for, I'm not sure.
Right.
But like they had become so arrogant, and they had, in a way, Palpatine's right. They had become so controlling and had confined it. They weren't learning from the Force anymore. Does it make sense? They had harnessed it and almost turned it into theirs, whereas that's not really how it should be, right? It's sort of the Force flows through us. It's in us. It's around us. It's in all it's in all beings. So I think, yes, part of it was their arrogance. Part of it is, I think, the rule of two, and this idea that the Sith, the Force will balance itself out. And if we only have 2 Sith Lords, and they kept their number, this is part of, Darth Bane, if this is a thing, I don't know if this is still canon or not, I believe it is, that when he creates this rule of 2, they go underground, and they're basically able to study and train unharassed for a millennia. According to Ki-Adi-Mundi. Like, they've not been around for a millennia, he says. So if that's the case, they've been studying and planning and scheming for a long time. Oh, Lord, you think they're going to be ready to go. Or they've tried a couple things and they didn't work, and those lessons have been passed on from master to pupil. So I think that was a part of it. Darth Plagueis has a lot to do with it. He was in the shadows big time, and I think he had sort of helped set this plan up. Quite frankly, if the theories are true that Plagueis didn't die, and maybe was, like he faked his death. All those theories that Snoke could be
Anakin,
Plagueis.
who knows? Yeah,
all those different things. So if Plagueis is still around, this could be his whole thing. Is that he has this in his mind, his apprentice Palpatine, doing all of these things and setting this all up and setting the stage for what could be, something more. I don't know. So yeah, I think that. Yoda learns at the end that they were wrong, and he learns that they had basically taken the Force for granted. They tried to bend it to their own will instead of heeding to the will of the Force. And what is the Force telling you? Yeah. What do you think, right? How else does he get away with that?
I don't know. See, I think this just comes down to, maybe that's the difference between Palpatine and Yoda, is that Palpatine isn't just a Sith Lord who's focused on the Force, and he's also a politician.
Yep.
So he also has that into it. Whereas Yoda is more of a teacher, and he wants to teach younglings, and he wants to do things. Then you have like Mace Windu, who's like more of like a soldier, and so he's focusing on missions and all of these other things. Mm-hmm. And so Palpatine's like, well, I'm a Sith Lord, but I'm also a politician, so he's like, my goal is this, and he doesn't have to worry about all of the other. He only has to worry about himself.
Right. Can I say one of the most? And I love that they put this line in there, and I wish more people focused on it. Mace Windu says, "Should we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force has diminished?"
Yeah.
That I don't know why people don't focus on that more. He says, so it wasn't like he was saying, "Do you think our ability to use the Force has diminished?" He says, "Should we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force has diminished?"
Yeah.
Because it had. And he and Yoda saw that, and they had believed it.
And another thing is, so the light side, right, like they always tell you, be wary of the dark side. Whereas the dark side's just like, we're just here for power.
Right.
Pure power. Now, we didn't ever see until episode 7, I'm struggling with the light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's like new thing.
I know.
Right? You know what I mean? So, because before, I don't think there's any other reason that like you would see a Sith user just not use, I guess, what you would consider a light side power, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's any reason like we would never see like somebody use like a force push.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that's a light side as opposed to a dark side power.
Right. It's almost like if it's light side power, it's fair game for everybody, but if it's dark side, whoa, hold on a second.
Right, yeah.
Whereas maybe that, they did not trust their pupils enough. Because clearly Yoda had learned some things about it.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
Have to, yeah.
Exactly. And so then he found other ways to control that and to use it back against the Sith Lords. So there's more. And Anakin, I believe, was right. He said there's things about the Force that they're not telling me. And he is so right. They would not tell him those things for fear that he would be tempted to go down the dark path.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. It's just, I don't know. I love it.
So I'm trying to think. So we have about 15 minutes left here. Sorry, guys, we're on a timer today.
Yeah, we gotta watch Oak Island. Okay,
yes. So, okay, question.
Yeah.
Here we go. I have 2 questions left.
All right.
This is kind of both of these are going to be kind of bigger, like Last Jedi questions,
Fine.
but also related to other things. Do you think Palpatine created Anakin?
Wow.
And here the only thing I want to give
Go
is
ahead.
that keep in mind we do get the context in the first movie. So
Yeah.
George Lucas sets the stage by saying there was no father, I carried him, I gave birth, I can't explain what happened.
Right.
Created by the Force. So
Right.
it is at least stated Anakin is created by the Force.
Yes.
Then in episode 3, they bring back the idea of being able to create things through the Force with life. Now, just remember, maybe it was George Lucas's original intention. Maybe people got upset about it. Remember, Jar Jar is the key to everything.
Yeah.
So, just because it was never explicitly said doesn't mean that that was not George Lucas's intention.
At one point, yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be something? I mean, I think that absolutely could have been where he was going, and then all of a sudden Darth Plagueis is formed. You know what I mean? Like let's say you're right, and that the original story was that, and that was going to be the big. Because what was the
Maybe,
big?
and it is kind of a joke, the idea of Darth Jar Jar, but I mean, what we got I think is probably very different than what George Lucas's intention was.
Yeah.
And so I think it's totally possible that, I mean, it sounds dumb, but like maybe because Jar Jar Binks was supposed to be a thing, and maybe he ends up being a totally different character.
Yeah.
Than what we got, but I'm just saying I think it's possible that was George Lucas's plan.
Well, here's a way that he could have done it, and I remember thinking back before you knew who Darth Plagueis was or anything, right? And you don't really know much about the Emperor Palpatine. It was sort of his story. How did this guy Palpatine? We forget that it was his how he emerged onto the galactic stage and all these different things. So, what's the big twist? No, I am your father in episode 5, right? Huge, right? What was that going to be in the prequels?
Yeah.
Was it going to be Palpatine saying to Anakin, no, I am your father?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I created you.
And another thing was, I think once this idea of Darth Plagueis got made, like everybody made it to such a big deal, where maybe it could have just been that the Emperor made up a Darth Plagueis. You know what I mean? He just, keep in mind, this is the Sith Lord. It's not like he doesn't lie all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like he could be talking about himself having this power, and he wants to just like kind of tease it to Anakin, so he uses a false name, Plagueis. But then, of course, the fans pick up, and now we have books and all this stuff on Plagueis. Yeah. So that had to change, but
absolutely, yeah. I think it could be, and here's the other thing too. Even if he wasn't the father, and let's say Plagueis did have some sort of something went on there with the Force, because I don't know. I mean, I get that the Force, people have sort of, they've went away from the obvious, right? Yeah. They've gone to, well, the Force would create Anakin. Well, that's what we said. That's what we said in episode 1. There was no father. We've gone away from that.
That's canon. You can't go back and change it.
Yeah. Well, but people have said, okay, but because again, in episode 4, Obi-Wan lies to us from a certain point of view. So was Shmi Skywalker lying to us from a certain point of view? Is there more to the story? And is Palpatine the answer, or Plagueis, or what have you? But my point is that I keep trying to remind people, and I tell this to anybody who wants to listen, because I love to talk about Star Wars, but is that the Force is the invisible character. It is the character that is literally around and everything, and it has its own will. And it influences things in front of us, and that's what we have to look for, are the influences of the Force.
Well, and also think about how often that this idea of life becomes such a big deal in Star Wars. It's always this like very underlying current. Like episode 1, okay, well, it is this idea Anakin may have been created by the Force. Episode 2 is all about making clones. What's that say? Well, how is that? Right. Episode 3, it's about wanting to save Padme, and then she dies, but she gives life to Luke and Leia. Episode 4, Luke finding out about Darth Vader killing his father. This idea, Obi-Wan dies but lives on through the Force.
Alderaan is destroyed.
Alderaa's destroyed. 5, you're
voices.
my father. 6, Anakin dying, Yoda dying. I mean, and then in 7 we start getting the idea of Han Solo dies. I mean, there's this idea of life, and now the big question is who's Rey's parents. I mean,
yeah,
I'm starting to think that it doesn't really matter whose Rey's parents are. I'm kind of thinking it's not as big of a deal. But you know what? It could totally be like Anakin, where when we watched episode 1, we were like, "Oh man, the Force created him, it was a big deal," and then episode 2 comes around, and we're like, "Well, I guess we don't really care about that anymore."
Right. Yeah. It could be
in
something
in
that.
1 week we could totally not even be talking or caring about whose Rey's parents are.
Right. They could be really insignificant. I actually think what they're going to do in this episode is put us off for one more episode. I've really changed where I stand on it. I think, again, the same way that like Leia was adopted by Bail Organa or whatever, she'll have parents, but they're not necessarily the parents that were interested. It's not the true story. It's the curtain. You know, we don't see the wizard behind the curtain yet. So we'll get there, but it's not going to be until episode 9. I really don't think so, and I think they're going to play it off as something insignificant. There's going to be some breadcrumbs there, but we're still going to be talking about it into 9, I actually think. Or if you learn who her parents are, there will be enough of a tease that we're all going, no, that's not it. That's not all to the story, and I think that's what they want us to do. So that could be the big reveal in 9, actually.
Okay, let me dive into the last question here. This is kind of a big one here. So this is just from like a Reddit fan theory I've been reading lately. It was like a big one. It's been around for a while. Wow, this post was submitted originally in 2012.
Wow, what's up? Yeah,
I don't know how they got this. This is like before.
Did
episode,
they edit it
this
and
is
update
before
it?
episode 7.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 2012 would have been for sure.
Okay. This is before episode 7 somebody posted this, so it's like crazy relevant. The real reason Emperor Palpatine created the Empire, Death Star, Sun Crusher, basically he's saying, my favorite Star Wars conspiracy theory is that the Emperor wasn't spending all those resources creating crazy super weapons like the Death Star and the Sun Crusher and putting together galactic feats of Star Destroyers wasn't to stop the Rebel Alliance, but rather in preparation of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion.
Wow, the Yuuzhan Vong.
Vong, basically saying that the Emperor built the Death Star was specifically because we're gonna need it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's exactly what they're hinting at in the Thrawn novel. Is that Thrawn is literally coming to see, like when he was an original scout and he looked at the Galactic Republic and then he saw the Empire. Empire in his mind was way stronger and way more equipped to handle what he called
the new Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah, the new book. Yeah,
new book,
just releasing.
Is it going to be a trilogy?
17. The new one's coming out next year.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it will be. That's a book though that you when the new one comes out, you'll have to read the first one. We'll dive right into the second.
And the original Thrawn trilogy is kind of about totally different stuff.
Yeah, it is totally different stuff. I mean, you get into the new Jedi Order eventually where it's Luke early on. So it's when he first meets Mara Jade. Okay. She's introduced and stuff. So eventually they fall in love and get married. So the Yuuzhan Vong don't invade until much later when Han and Leia have Jaina and Jace, and then he has.
Because now that's what everyone's kind of saying might be the Yuuzhan Vong.
Oh yeah, I actually think
Last Jedi and.
Yeah, I think we're seeing both sides of the coin here. We're seeing the First Order and the Resistance, and we're getting more of their faces, and we're more familiar with them in the books, and the novels, and the comics, because we're going to see those two things unite to face an unknown region threat or something like that. So yeah, that's totally. I mean, I love that theory. That
I think it's crazy this was a theory before, because that seems to be the theory now.
Well, because at that time they were still finishing up, I think, like the Jedi Outcast series and stuff in books and things. So people were still thinking about.
So is that where people are pulling it from now? The Yuuzhan Vong.
Yeah, so the Yuuzhan Vong had been they had already been established before that. But yeah, they were. Yeah, I don't know. What is the threat? I've heard people say the Yuuzhan Vong, no, will never come back. It'll never be a thing. But boy, there's a lot of information out there on them, and they're like a big deal. I don't think they're going to.
Did they show up in 8, 9, the original 7, 8, or 9?
I don't know actually what the whole. You mean like George Lucas's originally what he kind of intended there? No, I think what that is about. What that was going to be about. Like his original 7, 8, 9 was going to be about Han Solo's. Again, this is why people are thinking that Rey and Ben are related.
Yeah,
because of what George had originally sort of
with the twins.
What you had been rumored, and there was a script out there. Han and Leia have twins, and Ben Skywalker is actually the one who is sort of later on finds out that I never say his name right, Darth Cadus or Darth Cadius or whatever his name is. Gosh, I totally butchered that. I know I did. But essentially, Jason Solo is that bad guy, right? And he actually kills Mara Jade. But his apprentice, Ben Skywalker.
Yeah.
And Ben reveals to his father, but then his cousin, the sister of Jaina, the sister of Jason, has to face her brother, and bring it and take him down. It's crazy. I mean, it's just that was super cool. But what you see in the new Jedi Order is basically, and it's interesting because real quickly, what I've heard from Adam Driver in interviews, this is so cool, that he's kind of saying we're going to see a good-natured side, or sort of like a flashback to a time where his character Ben Solo was much softer, a softer side to him. And early on, before New Jedi Order, Jason Solo, who might parallel Ben Solo, is super again. He doesn't quite agree with the Jedi and how they use the Force to, fight and do different things like that. He really doesn't. He's not for it until he's tortured by the Yuuzhan Vong and things like that.
So, what do you think the original plan? I mean, aside from the fact that George Lucas probably said, I want to build this crazy one battleship because it'll be cool. Yeah. So aside from the actual reason, what do you think, though, was like more of the original purpose of we need the Death Star?
I think the Death Star because something that you have a galaxy, especially when he created such a big world there right out the get-go, you almost need either that massive fleet. And Thrawn says in his book, he said, we need to quit allocating resources to this Death Star. Once he found out, he tried to stop it. And he said, no, build the fleet. Because the Death Star can only be in one spot at one time. It cannot be in multiple places. And, yeah, it can get over there pretty quick. But it can't be everywhere. And so you need a big fleet. And they were reducing the fleet to build the Death Star.
Do you think the Emperor more so wanted the Death Star because it was like a symbol of the power of the...
Yeah, it was symbolic. It was also one of those things, like, it is a big force, and maybe what George Lucas thought about this is, like, that's a big moon-like, space station that can orbit planets. It's, what I mean? It's just huge, and you would need something that big to sort of make the Empire seem more relevant or more scary in a big galaxy. If they have a planet that they can move around, that haunts. I mean, think about that. You got a planet that can orbit other planets and can basically. It's a big deal. I don't know. So, but the fleet, huge. And Thrawn's right. They underestimated. Put all their eggs in one basket. So, yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Wow, man, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, sorry. I just kind of was like, I just write down some questions, find some questions online, and just kind of ask Ez so he can just kind of gush over Star Wars. And
I love it. I love it.
Kind of answer questions and rattle on about it.
Yeah, I mean, guys, we appreciate you listening. Matt and I are I'm thinking about kind of doing more of an audio version, I guess, of a podcast show, to where we kind of, we sit down, we have moments like this, and we kind of compile those into like a weekend. We drop it on a weekend. Mike and I will still run, like our normal 40-minute episodes, but I'm thinking about doing something bigger. Longer. I've often heard people say, like, we do Second Breakfast and you do Box Trick, a good hour-long podcast. So just so you guys know in the future, we'd like to do that where I sit down with Matt for maybe 30 minutes, sit down with Tom for 30 minutes, Andrew, Mike, and what have you. Get all the guys together, get their thoughts. So, like, basically, I'd like to do what you just did to me. I'd like to do that to you guys. Because we talk about this stuff all the time. I mean, we love posing hypotheticals, and I love the hypothetical battles. It's just, they're so, it's so cool. So, if we can do more of that in the future, I think that'll help us sort of keep the podcast fresh and keep it kind of moving and flowing and things. And then Mike and I will keep doing our normal, ridiculous, fun just episodes and stuff. But, we want to make it more grandiose and bring more people on board because Star Wars is here. The Last Jedi is literally a week away, and we are excited about it, and we cannot freaking wait. Cannot wait. So, all right, guys. Thanks, Matt. You can check Matt out on Box Trick Retro Gaming Podcast.
Yep.
Correct. Yep. He's on there with our good friend Tiffany. They do a
Swish
real
and
cool
Flick.
series.
Yep.
Yeah, Swish and Flick. So check those ladies out. Check Matt out there on Box Trick. Also check Matt and I out on Second Breakfast, a little something podcast.
Talk about all sorts of random things.
Yeah.
Mostly Game of Thrones, Dragon Ball, and then who knows what.
And who knows what, yeah. So, okay. All right, guys. Well, stay tuned. And as always, may the Force be with you.